issue appears to have been resolved. I want to begin by thanking you for joining us for this latest webinar focusing on the ease and functionality of RTT's DeltaPix 3D software. My name is Eric Galina and I'm the editor of CDN. The production of images and videos based on 3D data has become a standard routine for designers, engineers, and sales and marketing professionals. Today, Dennis Wagner from RTT will be telling us how, with RTT DeltaPix, existing 3D models can be used as is. Dennis will be demonstrating its comprehensive functionality and variety of features, including import options, synchronizing updates between CAD data and high-end visualizations, efficient rendering options, and ease of integration with various process landscapes. Dennis is the product manager for RTT products, including DeltaGen, DeltaText, and DeltaPix. He has a degree in computer science from the University of Applied Sciences, Kaiserslautern, otherwise known as K-Town. Dennis began his career as a researcher at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence and joined Spheron VR AG in 2005, where he was head of software development, software architect, and product manager. He also worked as a software architect at Pharmatechnik, a Munich-based company, prior to joining RTT in 2011. Dennis's session, which will last around 45 minutes or so, will wrap up with a dedicated questions and answers session at the end of the webinar. So please do get ready to ask your questions throughout the webinar by typing them into the box on the lower right-hand side of your screen. If you should happen to experience any technical issues during this session, please type these into the Q&A box and our team will do their best to sort these out for you. If you're using a PC, be sure to check that the audio is not in mute mode. We hope you'll find this webinar stimulating and informative. I'll now hand it over to Dennis to begin his presentation. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you, Eric, for the introduction. Hi, my name is Dennis Wagner, and I will just start right off into the software by RTT called DeltaGen. Some of the audience might be familiar with this software. We're just going to use this as a quick starting point, so don't worry, it's not going to be about DeltaGen at all. What you can see here is the model of the new Opel Ampera. And you can see the model has been prepared to look quite nice, and you have all the interior and exterior prepared in terms of material. And we're going to export this into an empty folder. You can easily tell the folder is empty. You can see it's on desktop, and there's nothing in there, and we're going to save it. In order to show you how to get into the software DeltaPix, I'm going to present you right after this. Maybe we can switch over to DeltaPix for a quick view. And this is how DeltaPix will look like when you start the software up. It's very clean. There's nothing much about the UI not being very complicated. We're just starting into a fresh setup scene that contains no model, and you will see that the software will load some background elements, and after a few seconds you will have your empty workspace, which consists of just a rendering window, some message showing you can start by importing model, and some elements above and to the right of the rendering window. And when we have a look into the folder that we have saved the Opel model to, we can just select it in Windows Explorer and drag it into DeltaPix, drop it here, and we get some import settings. As you can see, the import settings are not very complicated. It's really only a very few basic settings. This is one of the main intentions of the software DeltaPix itself, just being easy to use and not overwhelming users with lots of technical terms and lots of complicated work steps. So you can see there's only 4 elements: geometry, materials, with some very basic settings, and there's cameras and lighting. And you can see cameras and lighting are, when importing CSVs from DeltaGen, not to bother because they are handled automatically. So when we click now OK, you can tell the software loading up the model. If you have a look into the upper right part of the software, it shows you some progress bar telling you what the software is currently doing. It's now importing the model and preparing it to be viewed, and after a few seconds we will see it. In the meanwhile, let me discuss on why we choose to show you with CSB, just to make sure that people that are familiar with RTT already know where to head into the software for a start. But of course the software does support many different file formats, being it 3ds Max files, for example, or files from other CAD formats. Especially to be noted is the support for wire files from Alias Studio, and also the support for JT files, which are very common CAD program transfer format. Now the software has loaded. You can see we are in a ray trace mode, and this runs on a fairly normal computer. Okay, it's more or less a high-end computer, but not maxed out, not being too expensive. It runs one NVIDIA Quattro 6000 graphics card, and you can see we're doing the ray tracing in an interactive speed, to say. You can see we started right away with the same view that we left from DeltaChen, and also the same settings, and we get the same material appearance than we had before, just with the difference of the windscreen and the windows for themselves. We have set them to be non-transparent in GI mode, just in order to save some rendering time and get a quicker result here. But also we find that this matches the model quite well. Yeah, now after having shown how we can put the software into the model into the software, we want to show you how to operate with the model inside of the software. There's some pretty basic manipulators that you can see. You can rotate the camera around the model. Very easy, very straightforward. And you can of course also do a zooming and a panning of the camera, all very familiar terms. You know that from other 3D softwares. And by using those elements, it's also not necessary to know and memorize any complicated keyboard combinations. It's just selecting the manipulator you want from this very easy and very short list from the top of the software, and just clicking the window and dragging the mouse. So the last thing, of course, is twisting the camera. You can do that if you want to. Will create, of course, some nice shots. Yeah, in the end, the model can, of course, have lots of different settings, and therefore we select the model and want to get back to a good starting point by, for example, starting by snapping it to the ground. The model was placed a little bit below in DeltaChen, and we can fix this in here in order to make sure that, for example, ground shadows will look accurate. Just clicking snap to ground will translate the model to be in level with ground, and immediately see the difference in the distance between ground shadow and the lower part of the car. Now, next thing we're going to show you is manipulating the car's body color. And we have a library of different materials, but we can also just select the part, choose selection mode material, and then select car, and you see the materials that are present in the scene. And you see to the right side, those are visualized as large spheres, giving you quite a good impression of how the material itself will look like. And if we scroll down, we can see there's lots of different materials in the scene, and by selecting again the car paint that is used, we can get, you see there's lots of them. We can start changing the colors. You see this is only presented by a diffuse color, and we can easily change this using basic color picker, and you can see immediately the result of this operation in the render window where you have the ray traced result right away. So this is very much real-time changing of the scene's elements, giving you a good idea on the variety of different settings. Of course, as you can see, there's a lot more settings than only the diffuse color. Now showing you the file libraries, the material libraries, will give you also a lot more to choose from than only selecting a car paint. You can see there's lots of predefined materials. There's glass, there's leather, there's fabric, of course. There's also plastics a bit below, and then we have, of course, the metallic paint. This saves you the hassle to always have to tweak all the materials. You can just drag and drop one. For example, if you want the car to be green, you select the green material, drag it on the car, and there we go. Just a matter of a second. And if you want to have it blue, it's also as quick as that. And if you want to have it silver or yellow or something like that, this is really a very basic operation, not taking much time and not being very complicated. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of different functionalities, and one of the main functionalities we want to show you is called Ray Brush, and it's also very interesting in terms of rendering speed. After activating it, you can see this circle, and inside the circle you can see the progress of the ray trace, where it's refining the image quality. You can see outside of the circle the image quality is not progressing for the time being, but you can use this really as a brush to control where the computational power of the computer you are using is concentrated on. Therefore, you can very soon tell about changes by concentrating all the computing power on this specific part you are interested in. For example, of course, the headlights or a special part of the body where you want to see the type of reflection or the change in reflection. Can give you a very good feeling about changes very quickly. There's also, of course, the possibility to have a magnification turned on and off, and the possibility to change the size of this ray brush circle. But if you just put it out again, you can see the car is itself progressing now to be refined for the complete surface. Just doing any navigation, of course, will also trigger this. Coming back to the libraries, we have shown you lots of different predefined materials, but we can also switch to different elements in the scene, which are also present in the library. We have prepared preloaded environments. You can see in the list of the libraries we have also environments, and we have backplates, and we just prepared them in this empty scene before we imported the model, just in order to have this quick. And when we switch the environment, by just double-clicking the one we choose before, you can almost immediately tell that the software is loading it up in the background and using it as a reflection on the car. So therefore, you can put the model very quickly in complete different lighting setups, giving you a very good impression. So the car was in the studio a few seconds ago, and now we're out in the fields in front of Schloss Nymphenburg here in Munich, giving you a complete different look and feel of also the car's body paint, because it's now not only reflecting a more or less boring studio environment, but really reflecting reality. Please note also the hard shadows that are now going to the front right side of the car, which were in before going more to the bottom of the car. By adding a backplate to this, we can create, of course, a lot better quality of the background of the image. And by choosing a matching camera, we can also very quickly switch to a more or less matching part where we have the car lighted by the environment taken at that castle and in front of the castle. Combined together, we have a very good impression of how the car would look like if it stood right in front of Schloss Nymphenburg. So therefore, this is a very quick setup by just choosing the model, choosing the environment, choosing the backplate, and maybe manipulating the environment so that the reflection matches quite good. You can tell, for example, in on the front of the car that we are reflecting really the building to the right and not to the left, for example. As you can see, after choosing the camera, we do have lots of terms that photographers are very much familiar with, other than in other 3D computer graphics software. We're not talking here with terms like field of view and other very engineering or computer graphics-like terms, but instead using photographer's language, talking about focal length instead. All the elements that are presented here in the camera properties window are really more or less familiar, not only to photographers, but also are elements that can be written up when you are doing the backplate shot on location. This makes it very easy to prepare the model matching the parameters that you used when taking the backplate when you are back in the office and trying to compose the image, for example. The camera does not only have its main settings by for the setup, but also offers some post-processing options, which are very important and not only giving you a basic impression about changing, for example, the gamma or crushing the blacks, as we call it, or burning the highlights, but will also give you, for example, the possibility to change the exposure or to also add some effect like vignetting the image, for example. Can of course over-exaggerate this just to illustrate the effect. For example, if we then changed also the tone curve in the image, we can very fast create images with different emotions out of the same setup. Very easy, very fast, and with a very easy to use effect. Now maybe we just choose another setup, turning off the post-processor options and coming back to the depth of field, which is of course also very important in terms of emotional images. And as you can see, depth of field is also a camera controlled element, and activating it gives you the possibility to not only choose a predefined focal distance, but also click somewhere in the image to define where the unblurred part of the image should be. That is where the focal distance is. So it gives you a very fine control without the need to do a lot of tweaking and a lot of matching this. So you are able to create a depth of field that differs from the one you would get by just duplicating the camera settings you used when shooting the backplate. An interesting second thing is the possibility to very quickly switch between different settings. So if we choose a different camera, like the one we call Coast up there, and then immediately go over to our environments and switch to a Coast environment for the reflections, and then activate also a matching backplate, we can very quickly switch over from Munich Castle to somewhere near the coast of an ocean. To be honest, I do not know exactly where this image has been taken, but that should not bother us. Just choosing the coast backplate, and we just changed camera, environment, and backplate, keeping the model, and it will give us a different image within just a few seconds. You can see not only that the lighting setup is completely different, but also the mood of the image is a very much different one than the one we had before. So changing this setup from one location to another location is a very quick and smooth operation that does not take a lot of time. And we can also show you now that the reflection of this rock is here in front of the car, which is obviously not correct. And by choosing the settings of the environment, we can very easily change this, just rotating the environment around the car, and then we have a reflection on a different part of the car, just making this a better match in order to match the car into the given scene. Now, the next thing is, of course, we switched different elements. We have chosen different colors of the model of the car. We have chosen different lighting situations. We went into different environments on the different places, but we are more or less constrained to the environment that we have before. But there's also a different way to try out different light setups, and that is a so-called sun study. By activating it, it is just used as a different environment, and it is chosen like all the other ones, just double-clicking it. You can tell the program is now creating it, and you can see the immediate change on the reflection. So we now deactivate the backplate, which is not matching anymore. We can just unclick the show backplate, and there we have the car standing in a very neutral environment in a given lighting setup. And just activating the sky environment gives you a lot of different settings. In fact, you don't have to switch a lot of those settings. You can tell we have selected a position on the world that is more or less in the middle of Europe for now, and we can switch very fast to go, for example, to Brazil. Clicking down here, and also moving over here. Well, just software takes a quick second, and you can tell on the different place on the Earth's face, we have a different lighting situation at the same time. We can not only change the position on the Earth, we can also change the time of the year and the time of the day, giving you a very, very quick impression of how the car would look like, say, in a very neutral environment. So thereby you can very, very quickly change the appearance of the lighting situations you want to put your model into, giving you a very good idea of where it would look like, when and how. There's more settings to this, like you can see the horizontal blur and sun intensity, but in the end all those settings are just something to play with, and giving you all the possibilities to very, very quickly select all this. Yeah. Now, what do you do after you have set all this in your render window? You want to do something about it, and you want to maybe also animate it. Therefore, we have the possibility to render turntable animations. Of course, a pretty much forward possibility to change, and we can also animate the sun studies that we have just used by changing, for example, not changing, but going through from a start time to an end time, defining the number of frames and creating a movie out of that. And if you then click Start Sun Study Render, it will put out a video. You can choose from different video formats, and you can look about how change of light will affect the car. Being here in the render window, of course, we can go also to the main render output, which will be, to our feeling, the most important element of the software. If you have prepared quite a nice setup, you will want to have this in high quality and high resolution to show it to other people. And therefore you can, of course, render out images, and you can render them as JPEG, bitmap, and TIFF files, but you can also render them as HDR, because all the software is computed and all the rendering is computed in HDR, and you can also directly output as a Adobe Photoshop file. This is very handy if you have a look at the render output parsers, which give you the possibility to render not only the finished image that you see in the viewport, but also render all the different elements of the scene into different layers in the Photoshop image. And this gives you, of course, a very good control and fine-grained control, so that you can compose the final image by changing, for example, the intensity of the shadows or even the color of the shadows, for example. Maybe you want to over-exaggerate some reflections. You can easily do this by changing in Photoshop, for example, the intensity of the specular elements. We can just select all of them, for example, and go on to the next element in the render output. Then we have, of course, the resolution, also the print resolution and the print size, just to select from. Pretty straightforward settings, you know them from different other softwares. Now the more interesting part are the render settings below. Of course, there's always a quality setting in all of the render softwares that you are aware of nowadays, and you can select, here it is called render passes. Other softwares call it, for example, samples to choose from. And of course, choosing more of those passes will give you a better image result and a better image quality. But when it comes down to quality, this is only one of the aspects that you sometimes want to spend. Sometimes you have to put out an image within a given time frame. And therefore, we have a different render mode called time limit. And you can say, okay, I have to present this in, say, 2 hours from now, and therefore I want to spend like 90 minutes for the rendering, so that I have a bit of time left to do some photoshopping to prepare this image. Or maybe I just can have the computer render overnight, and I want to continue with the result when I return the next day, and I know it's going to be like 10 hours from now. I can easily say, please, DeltaPix, render 10 hours and give me all the quality that I can get in this resolution in this time frame. So this is a quite clever way to use your time to the max and not rely and, of course, also depend on knowledge and experience of people of how long a given scene will take to be quite well. So just let the software decide, because it knows best, for it has all the parameters and rendering technology inside. What you can also do is you can choose from which render mode you want. You can render using the CPU, but you can also render using the GPU, which is, of course, a nice thing if you have a very powerful GPU like we do here on this computer. And you can also choose to use hybrid mode, which is a very clever feature, giving you the possibility to use up all of the available resources of the computer you're currently working with. So thereby having, like on this machine, 12 CPU cores and one big NVIDIA Quadro card gives you in hybrid mode, of course, quite a performance boost, of course. And then we also have a few extra settings like send to queue, which will enable you to do batch rendering by queuing up several render jobs, for example, several rendering resolutions or several different angles of the same scene. You can, of course, also load up different scenes and queue them together, but this is, of course, a bit beyond the scope of this webinar. You can choose to render in the background, which is also the default, giving you the possibility to use the computer for, say, checking emails in the meantime. And you can use something that is called boost rendering, which is a network render mode, giving you the possibility to distribute the render job to several machines all running DeltaPix and this boost render service. So therefore, you can dramatically reduce render time for a given quality. So in the end, I think we have shown you lots of the pretty basic functionalities, not going too much into detail on all of them. But for now, I would be quite interested in learning which of the audience are familiar with RTT DeltaGen, and therefore would like to start a quick poll for this. I hope we can start this. Yeah, the poll is already open. Okay. And I think after having the result, I will try to go into a bit more details on this. Okay. Now, while I'm waiting for you to work on the poll, I think, do we have the result already? Okay, there's a result of the poll, and we see that most of the audience does know RTT DeltaGen. I see there's 58% knowing the software. What we want to share not only is the similarity of this the working mode, but also the difference in terms of ease of use. What we have shown in the last few minutes is really a highly complex operation when it comes to RTT DeltaGen. But what we are now preparing in the meantime is, for example, a scene consisting of several models. Very quickly, we just switched over to raster mode in order to speed this up a little bit. It's just doing a copy-paste of the model and translating the copied versions of the model and arranging them, and just choosing different colors, which will give you some image we are also using in DeltaGen to show people how quickly we can create, let's say, a very emotional scene. Just choosing different materials. And the red one, for example. And there you can see we just set up a highly complex scene, very easy and very quickly, compared to what people are used to from other software like RTT DeltaGen or like, for example, Maya or 3D Studio Max. Operations like this are a lot more complex in those software tools, and it's in this software it's more or less dragging around a few elements and not having to click through lots of different windows and of complex dialogues asking you lots of technical questions, asking for lots of numbers, for example. And as you can see, we have prepared the scene in full ray trace with several models, very easy, very quick. You can see the models reflecting each other. You can see the shadows on the ground, and we can enhance this even further by adding a bit more ground reflection, for example, and changing the glossiness of the ground, and we end up with what we think is a very moodful, very emotional picture very quickly within RTT DeltaPix. Let's say in only a few seconds, if you are more or less familiar on with how to use a Windows program and not having to be trained very much in the details of a highly complex rendering tool. So this is more or less what we wanted to share with you today. Just to give you a quick overview about the software DeltaPix and all the possibilities of the software and all the power it gives you as the operator to very, very quickly set up and show to, for example, your colleagues or your boss what you think about how a model, a car, or whatever else would look like in a given scene. You can also create the lighting environment by using the sun study. You can render out images in arbitrary resolutions. And this is all done not only within a few minutes, but also changing from one setup to another can be done in just a matter of seconds. So first of all, I want to thank you for your attendance and would like to answer your questions if you have any.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Dennis. There are a few questions that have come in here. We'll start with the first one from Paul Chapman of Bentley Motors. He asks, will DeltaPix show a performance benefit with use of NVIDIA Maximus technology, i.e. a NVIDIA Quadro 6000, NVIDIA Tesla C2075 configuration?
Actually, it will. It is using the iRay renderer, which is pretty much relying on CUDA, NVIDIA's rendering technology that does scale very good and very linear on those hardware. And Maximus as technology will make the transition for different parts of the computation between a pure GPU with a rasterizer connected like the Quattro, but also the pure CUDA computing in the Tesla very easy and very straightforward. So the answer in quick is yes, you will benefit great from this.
Great, good news. So Diego Pasito is also asking, if you update your DeltaGen file, will the DeltaPix file also update, i.e. add, remove, update parts and geometry?
You can do so. This is one of the functionalities that we have not shown in this short amount of time. It is called Made to Model, and you can very easily and very quickly update only parts of the geometry, and of course you can always choose the complete different geometry. We use this, for example, to transfer complex variants from DeltaGen into DeltaPix. So you can have in DeltaGen all the different setups prepared, and as we have shown in the beginning, you will start in DeltaPix with the exact same setup that you ended with in, or that you exported out of DeltaGen. So it's very quickly to choose one setup in DeltaGen, save it, use this in DeltaPix, and then go back to DeltaGen, choose a different complex setup, save it again, and use it in DeltaPix. And this can be done within merely seconds.
Okay, thanks for that, Dennis. Nicola is asking, is it possible to select colors from Pantone?
Sorry, I just did not hear the last part.
Is it possible to select colors from Pantone?
From Pantone?
Yes.
No, actually we did not include a Pantone palette into the software, but this is an interesting question. I will just take a note about it. And yeah, interesting idea. We did not think about this until now, but sounds like quite a nice idea for a future version of the software. I might have to add that DeltaPix was just released like six weeks ago in the version 1.0, so this is also, to say, the first version, and we are very much interested, of course, in learning from the market what the demands are. So thank you for bringing this up.
All right, well, thanks again, Dennis. There's another question coming in saying, can we buy RTT DeltaPix and get the same effect as DeltaGen if we don't want to make animation showcase, just an image?
To be honest, I do not understand the question completely. You can do more in terms of animations with DeltaGen, but with DeltaPix we feel this not being necessary in the first place, because you can very quickly switch between different setups, between different lighting setups, environments, backplates and cameras. So therefore we feel with DeltaPix it's very easy to do this without the need to define complex animations as you would do in DeltaGen. Of course, the animations will give you other possibilities, but I think when it comes down to only rendering images, this is more or less absolutely sufficient. Does this answer the question? You can follow up on this.
Well, I'm sure the person asking will let us know if it has or hasn't answered the question and get back to us. There's another question here on regarding the differences between DeltaGen, and basically Wilfried is asking, He'd like to know what the main differences between DeltaGen and DeltaPix are if my purpose is to make a school presentation with real-time rendering without going crazy.
Absolutely. DeltaPix is really aiming towards this kind of use case. If you want to make quick presentations and you want to be able to quickly react on, for example, comments from the people you are presenting to, then it's very good to have a tool like DeltaPix, not only to have the possibility to do this in a real-time rendering environment, but also having the ease of use and the not stripped down, but really clear and straightforward user interface. You can, of course, do the same thing within DeltaGen, but it's more complicated. You have to have very good, educated, and trained people in order to do this, and you might overwhelm, for example, your audience with a lot of technical details. And DeltaPix, of course, goes the ease of use way and uses this approach to make such demos less technical, to say.
Okay, thanks for that, Dennis. Another question from Nicola. Is it possible in the future to have web apparel's presentation where you can show how to change graphics, change buttons, color, and body of the form?
I understand from this question that you are aiming on doing web conferences with combined DeltaPixes. This is not a functionality we offer right now. But as you can see, we have shown this more or less today in this webinar. You had access to this view. You could see what I did in DeltaPix, and therefore I think most of this use case is covered by what we did today, but it's not like a built-in feature, because we feel that there's conferencing software in the world that may solve this better than we would by integrating some first functionality into DeltaPix. But in the end, it's an interesting approach, and I will also keep a note about your question. So thank you, Nicola.
I think it's important to note that Nicola is calling in from Diesel, I believe, so therefore not in the car designing industry, but nonetheless something that requires design input and input from RTT. So thanks for answering that question again, Dennis. There's a question from Peter Kirst asking, is there a limit of CPIS, GPIS used in boost mode?
The limit is more or less on a technical side, but not not by intention, to say. Of course, on some point, bandwidth problems will not make you benefit from adding more rendering power into your network, because collecting up all the different renderings will take then more time than rendering on the different nodes. So from that very technical standpoint, I would say there is a limit, but it's really, say, having a better network technology in the future might change this limit also. There's no limit in license-wise, to say. If you add more licensed nodes into your network, making them aware to your workstation and to your boost server, you can just scale almost linearly.
All right. There's a question that's come in again regarding the cost. There's been a few questions. So how much does it cost?
This is very much interesting question. I would want you to just contact the RTT sales personnel. You can do so using the RTT website. To be honest, I am not a salesperson. I do know there's a list price for the product, which is based on what we added on to only the rendering by, for example, the JT importing is somewhere below 10,000 euros. Don't ask me exactly about how much it would cost you. And it's also, there's different licensing options that makes the question relatively hard to to answer right away. Let's say there's a complicated catalog behind this. But I think if you just are interested in licensing it, you can contact, of course, RTT sales personnel, and they will be happy to answer your specific question regarding if you are, for example, interested in node-locked other than floating license.
Okay, so you just touched upon the different license types. That's a question that's come in as well. What are the license types?
Yes, we are offering both node-locked and floating licenses using the more or less very common FlexLM licensing system, or FlexNet, I think it's called nowadays. Just like we do with RTT DeltaGen and other products we are offering right now. So this is a very comprehensive and state-of-the-art licensing technology. So it's up to you if you want to run it, for example, on a more or less mobile workstation, want to move it around. The node-lock should be the one you aim for. But of course, if you want to use this in your work group, you can, of course, very easily choose a floating license system running a license server inside of your local area network.
Right, thanks again, Dennis. Torsten Steinborn is asking, how do you do a camera exchange with DeltaGen, bidirectional, sorry.
Camera change. You can, in the first place, you just have all the cameras that have been defined inside of the DeltaGen scene. They are present up here in the camera panel. So it's relatively easy to share them. You don't have to select anything. If you have like 20 different camera positions prepared in DeltaGen, you will have all of them in DeltaPix as well, by just importing a CSV.
Okay, I trust that answered Torsten's question. A question by David Wong, can you adjust the car's shadow to be lighter or darker?
Yes, you can do so. This is going into more of the tricks side of this, but you can, of course, you have two ways. The first is to change, to add, for example, a ground plane below the car and change the material of the ground plane to make the shadow appear darker, for example, or even lighter. And you can change this later on in Photoshop or in any other software that enables you to do image manipulation or image tweaking, as you can render out only the shadow layer of the image. It's relatively easy to do that. The shadow itself that is calculated inside of the rendering is a realistic shadow. So therefore, both color and strength of the shadow are coming out of the lighting situation and cannot be easily changed by, saying, dragging at a slider. But using the technology I was just referring to enables you both in the real-time rendering and in the result later on to change the shadow to match your current needs.
Okay, thank you very much, Dennis. There's a few questions coming in regarding the hardware that you're using, what kind of CPUs, GPUs was behind this this demo. Can you answer that?
Yes, of course. The computer we're using is, I may just give you a quick look about what you can see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cores rendering power. This computer has a lot of lot of RAM in order to ray trace large scenes, of course. And the computer does run, as I stated before, a Quadro 6000 graphics board from NVIDIA. Workstation graphics card which has 6 gigabytes of RAM, of dedicated graphics RAM. So it's more or less one quad core processor of Intel having hyperthreading activated.
All right, thanks for that, Dennis. Will DeltaPix be integrated in the data management concept with Team Center like DeltaGen, asks Vladimir.
The integration is done by the possibility to import JT files right away. This is also a key direction that RTT is heading, adding or putting the visualization software and the visualization needs closer to product lifecycle management, which is, for example, Teamcenter. And as DeltaPix is a program or a software intended to create the images, let's say the results are more or less out of the scope of Teamcenter, but of course you can download JT out of Teamcenter at any time and just drag and drop this into DeltaPix, or use, of course, the file open dialog and load up this JT right away without the need to have any additional preparation.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Patricio Gonzalez is asking a couple of questions regarding compatibility with other software. His first question is, can I import files from Autodesk Alias Automotive? And then his second is asking, can I import files from Imageware 13 and Siemens NX?
Answering the last one up front, you can import the JT files that you can get out of NX right away. This is more or less what I was referring to in the last question. You can also use the wire format, thereby opening files that you have created with Alias, Alias Studio. And for other file formats, there's a wide variety of different file formats. There's also ISMSurf and STEP and IGES and things like those. So therefore, we have compiled quite a number of, I think it's like 15 different file formats supported right away without the need of any additional converters or importers. They are included also in the trials version of the software that you can download for free from our homepage. So I suggest you just download the trial, give it a try, and see if you find one of the formats matching your current needs. You know, there's lots of different software in the market, and I think we found a very good representative overview of different formats that we support in the software. So it should be easy to find one matching in each and every environment that is present in the market nowadays.
Thanks, Dennis. So Tom Woods is asking, are there any animation tools beyond Turntable and Sun Study?
As of now, there are no additional animation things, no additional animation possibility inside of DeltaPix. To be honest, we are thinking about if this is necessary, and we did not found it for the first version, but maybe if you can convince us that you need this, we might come to a different conclusion. But for the time being, we only offer the basic turntable and Sun Study animations.
Okay. Thanks for that answer again, Dennis. Now, there's a question that says, saying that use CUDA, will it be better with GeForce 590 that have double the CUDA processors?
In general, we are not recommending the GeForce over the Quattro graphics cards. This is not related to counting the CUDA cores of the card, but it's related to, for example, the additional functionalities and the driver support that we have for the Quattro graphics boards. We found as RTT in general that stability is very important, and I think you will get more benefit out of having, say, 5 CUDA cores less than you would have with the GeForce, but having more stability when you run the computer for like 8 hours in a row. because you have to be aware that the GeForce boards are sharing the same technology, but are not intended for workstation use and for day-to-day use, but more or less are intended to do gaming in, of course, very high quality. So you can use them, but we would not recommend and not support this.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Francois Goldenberg is asking, does HRD Lite can HRD Lite Studio be plugged into DeltaPix?
As of now, it cannot, but to be honest, we are partner of Lightmaps and of Lightmap Limited, and the HDR Lite Studio is available as a plugin for DeltaGen. Actually, it accompanies every DeltaGen installation, if you wish. So therefore, you can of course use it if you are a DeltaGen user and use the HDRIs you created in DeltaPix. And for the future, we are currently investigating on if and how to include this into DeltaPix.
Right, thank you. Is there a limit of geometry, NURBS or polygons supported? Patricio is asking.
There is no technically forced limit, but of course the limit does come from the amount of available resources. So if you are doing GPU or hybrid rendering, you have to put all the geometry and all the textures into the graphics card's memory, and the biggest graphic card memory, to our knowledge, available nowadays is 6 GB, which will give you quite an amount of polygons that you can take out of. We're talking like tens of millions. But if you're going even beyond that, you can of course opt for the CPU option. So there's no built-in technical limitation. As you can see here below, I hope you can read it, we have like 6.5 million polygons in the scene that you can see right now. And this is not giving us any visible degradation in performance, to say.
Okay, thanks for that, Dennis. Alex Spinelli from Italy is writing, I noticed that the tools and rendering engine is quite the same as Bunk Speed Shop. Why should we buy RTT DeltaPix instead?
This is, it's nice that you notice it. You may have read that Bunkspeed and RTT joined forces development and research-wise last year. So this is one of the outcomes of this. The intention to use DeltaPix is, of course, if you are closer to what RTT is offering in terms of services and also software-wise. So if you are a current user of RTT DeltaGen, it is of course better to use DeltaPix over Bunkspeed because you can import the CSV files right away without the need to go through any different conversion format, without the need to have any special exporters, for example. And we have also prepared DeltaGen-like materials inside of DeltaPix. So as I have quickly and briefly shown you in the beginning of this session, if you open up the CSV in DeltaPix, it will almost exactly look like it did in DeltaGen. Okay, it is a different renderer, so there's a few elements of material appearance that cannot be transferred 100%, but those are not the most common ones, of course. So having the setup done in DeltaGen will give you a very, very good representation of that in DeltaPix, a very close one without a big noticeable gap. So therefore, if you are already an RTT customer and an RTT DeltaGen user, we definitely, you should definitely go for DeltaPix because it's just closer to your current workflow. Additional to that, DeltaPix offers the JT import, bringing you closer to, let's say, large scale workflows. When it comes down to the JT import, this is something that Bunkspeed, for example, does not offer at the moment.
All right, Dennis, thank you. There's a couple of questions that have come in regarding lighting. and lights. Is it possible to add different light sources and emissive materials, asks Boris.
Yes, it is. In fact, you can use the more or less basic light sources you are familiar with from other rendering tools. You can use point lights, spotlights, and directional lights. And you can also add emissive materials, by that giving you a more or less Light Studio-like, not to be confused with the HDR Light Studio software, but Light Studio-like control by adding, for example, planes and giving them an emissive material so that they will shed light into the scene also. But the pretty basic directional and point light, of course, and spotlight are, as you are very much used to from DeltaGen and other software tools.
Right, and another question on lighting is there a mesh physical-based mesh lights function?
Not beyond the point of using emissive materials.
Okay. There's also a question from Diego asking, is there a layering system like in Maya or Photoshop?
Yes, there is. You can, as I have shown in the render dialog, you can select different layers to output. And if you choose, for example, JPEG, just might activate this quickly, you can see there's lots of different layers, and you can use them to output. If you choose as image format Photoshop, they will end up as layers inside one single Photoshop file. If you choose a file format not supporting layers, like for example JPEG, you will end up with several files, one for each layer that you have chosen. So it's very easy to combine them later in Photoshop and use them to compose an image that you have very high control over.
All right, thanks for that, Dennis. We're kind of running out of time here, but there's three more questions that to ask. Two are regarding iRay, and it seems that Peter, well, they're different questions, so I'll ask them separately. Peter is asking, is there an automatic shader mapping tool to replace DeltaGen shaders by existing iRay shaders?
No, there's no such thing. We went the other way around. We created iRay shaders resembling the DeltaGen look model. So as you cannot say go back from DeltaGen to from DeltaPix to DeltaGen, sorry, we did not feel the need for this. In the end, we are not aiming to replace DeltaGen's renderer by iRay. We just found it easier to create this new software using the iRay renderer. You might know that RTT is a partner of NVIDIA, and so we are, of course, sharing lots of information in terms of technology in this field. But we do not intend to swap the renderer in DeltaGen, so therefore not as of now and not planned for the future.
All right, thanks again, Dennis. Steve Powell is asking, you mentioned DeltaPix DeltaGen uses the iRay engine, as you just said. Has any thought gone into using the Unreal Engine or other such gaming engine that seems to be leading in the film industry, as it seems that these engines are outperforming iRay? Can you elaborate?
Those engines are all rasterizer engines, and we are in fact striving for a quality that is not achievable as we feel nowadays in rasterizing, because it is very, very important to have accurate reflections, for example. And it's not only, as we see in this image that we have here on the screen, you can see the different cars. For example, the blue car is reflected in the door of the silver car, and you will not get this effect right away without a lot of extra effort in render engines like Unreal. And you will also not get this as an effect if you change the scene in real time. Gaming engines and rasterizer-based engines can create such effects, but they do it by pre-computations. And if you change the scene, all of your pre-computations are not usable anymore. So therefore, we do not feel that gaming engines are superior over iRay when it comes down to creating new scenes and manipulating scenes right away. You might be right, and you are right, in fact, that you can get a lot higher frame rates out of those render engines as, for example, Unreal Engine or CryEngine or whatever else of those gaming engines are there in the field. And they are great technology, but for this, we are really aiming for a different approach, for different use cases, and therefore for a different technology.
All right, Dennis, thank you. Question coming from Gustavo Mieja. He wants to know if the software is capable to release some kind of interactive alone presentation or portable presentation to visualize the products without the software.
No, as of now, this is not a feature of the software. To be honest, we have thought about this, but we did this with several customer projects by just using the output in some sort of template, for example, programmed in Flash, and just using DeltaPix and DeltaGen to render out several images and putting all of them into this template, and thereby giving the possibility to create a presentation. You can either, for example, use this to build up some PowerPoint presentations. But in the end, if you want to have the possibility to change anything inside the scene during the presentation, we strongly recommend using DeltaPix itself, because this gives you the whole freedom. And actually, we do not see any point in stripping down the functionality of DeltaPix any further, just to have some presentation-like mode for this.
Good point, Dennis. Thank you. There's a few more questions now, just the last two here. Do you support global illumination, for example, in architectural visualization?
In fact, this is pretty much down to the render engine that we're using, and iRay is a ray tracer that is capable of computing GI effects. Answering the second part of the question, RTT has not lots of experience in architectural setups, so therefore I cannot tell you how good this would match in this area. I do feel that it would, of course, because in the car industry, GI is very important nowadays when it comes down to, say, for example, the gaps between the car's door and the front fender, for example. If you want to tell how this would look like, you definitely want to go for GI, and this is one of the capabilities of the render technology we're using.
All right, and final question. Can I import HDR float 32-bit? Is it possible to apply to reflection?
Yes, definitely. Very much important in order to get good reflections, especially in outdoor scenes. If you want to have very good lighting situations, you would definitely go for HDR.
All right. Well, I think that concludes it. I think there's one final thing. Where can you get the software?
Yes. Thank you for bringing it up, Eric. I would just tell everyone in the audience, if you are interested in the software, and I hope you are now after this webinar, just go to the RTT website, which is www.rtt.ag. But you can easily find us also using Google or Bing or whatever else search engine. There's a download link for the software right on our website. You can easily find it under the point software. And there's a small registration area of the website, but it does not pose any problem. You don't have to pay anything. You can download a fully functional version of the software that will run for 30 days, and the only constraint will be a watermark. And the website will also give you the possibility to get in contact with the RTT sales personnel, and they will of course be happy to arrange additional demonstrations, for example, if you like to, and any forms of training or other support that RTT can deliver. So just go to our website and download the software and start using it today if you like.
Okay, well Dennis, thank you so much for telling us about RTT DeltaPix and for your presentation today. Thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us today. This webinar, as with our others, will be uploaded to our archives and accessible in the future, so all of your colleagues who haven't been able to attend this live presentation can also access this and indeed any previous webinar under the Process tab on the CDN homepage. So thanks again for joining us today, and thank you, Dennis, and we'll hope that you'll join us again for our next CDN webinar.
Okay, thank you also from my side, and thank you to the audience, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.
Goodbye, thank you.